If you do have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to enter them in the chat window on the Ring Central toolbar. We'll have a Q&A at the end. You can ask me anything you like. Good afternoon. My name is Gina Thomas. I'm the training manager at C&K Systems and your hostess for Training Bytes, a digestible approach to counterpoint training. Some of you, all of you probably have some items in your inventory that have gone into the negatives, and this can present a whole host of challenges. For example, if you run a valuation report of your inventory, any negative values are going to drag down the valuation report, make your inventory seem like it's worth less than what it really may be. You may be over ordering product if you've fallen into the negatives. Might cause some confusion for your point of sale associates if they see a zero or a negative in inventory, but physically can see the product on the floor. And if you have a lot of negatives when you do your physical inventory, you'll end up with some overages. So people often ask me, well, what causes my inventory to go into the negatives? You can typically pinpoint it to mistakes during selling, mistakes during receiving, mistakes made during store-to-store transfers, or even a mistake posting your physical inventory. We'll actually take a look at that a little bit later. So today I'm going to show you how to find your negatives. It's pretty easy. You can go into inventory, or you can go into inventory views, or you could even run a couple of reports. But I'll show you how to easily see your quantitative values through an item lookup with a simple modification to the data dictionary. Then I'll show you how to actually create a dedicated lookup for your negative values. And then we'll look at a couple of reports about solving on-hand and cost mysteries. So in inventory, if you click on table view, you'll get a list and you'll be able to right click on the quantity on hand, sort it ascending, and all your negatives will come to the top. You can further refine that view by coming here to the filter and customizing the filter for quantity on hand is less than 0. And I'll show you how to do that during the session today. Another thing you can do in the table view is you can just right click anywhere on the table view. So right click anywhere on this screen and you'll be able to export the data and Counterpoint will automatically send it to a CSV file. You can also use the lookup in the inventory. It looks like this. So you use this magnifying glass. Here you go, column designer to add your quantitative values. Again, you can right click on quantity on hand, sort it ascending. All your negatives will come to the top. You can filter for negative values or values below 0. You can also right click on this screen, right down here where you see data. You just right click and export data, and it'll automatically export it to a CSV. However, if you're in a lookup and you want more export options than just automatically CSV, if you preview the report, you'll be able to export to Adobe, Word, HTML, whatever you like. And we'll actually take a look at that during the demonstration once we get into the software. Here's something a lot of people don't know about or they've just never looked at. I mean, it's in everyone's install. If you go to inventory and you click on views, there's a module called View Inventory Detail. And what's nice about this view is it marries together descriptive values and quantitative values, displays all your locations, and if you have gridded items, you'll see your color and size items at the item level, like you kind of see in this screenshot here, where I've got this men's polo, 100% polyester in blue and small and blue and medium. This view can also be customized using your column designer. It can also be exported by just right-clicking anywhere where there's data and selecting Export Data. Why I bring this up is that when you're in a lookup or a table view in an inventory, when you go into your column designer, there aren't any descriptive values. So you can see here in this screenshot, I have an item number and a location, but there's no category, subcategory, vendor, Description, none of that here, nor is it available in the column designer. So that's what makes this inventory detail so valuable to look at and export. There's also a report called the Inventory Status Report, and you can actually, again, filter for values less than 0 to isolate your negatives. And there's several different ways to run this report. And we'll look at those different ways when we actually get into the software. And this is what a report looks like. And what you get returned on the report is going to depend on some of these parameter settings here, like this report dropdown, also the order by, also additional information. That all dictates what actually prints on the report. Something that I really like to do to kind of simplify looking at my negative values so I see descriptive and negative at the same time in one lookup is a simple modification to something called the data dictionary. So the data dictionary is basically going to marry together your quantitative and your descriptive values. So if you go to Setup System Configuration, Data Dictionary, when you click on the data dictionary button, it brings up a data dictionary screen. So you can see here on this title bar, it says data dictionary. This is not the screen you need. You need the system data dictionary. So it's just this button here. Then when you go to the system data dictionary, you're going to need to select a table. So here under tables, you'll select IM, and then you'll come down here and select IM item. Then you'll come down here to columns and select item no, and then you'll customize the column. Now, when you click on Customize Column, it returns you back to the data dictionary. So you can see here I have my IM item, I have my item no. Then if you click on the Other tab, you're going to go to this ellipsis on the lookup table line, and you're going to select VI IM item with INV. Then on the next line down, you'll click on the ellipsis. This is on the lookup field line, and you'll select item no, which is actually your first choice in the list. When you're done, save and refresh at the upper right, and then you'll need to restart Counterpoint. And that's so the changes take effect. Once you restart Counterpoint, you log back in, then you need to access your lookup, and that's the lookup here on the item number line. So this lookup here on the toolbar is not going to help you. It has to be the lookup on the item number line. And when you go into that lookup, you're going to have all kinds of quantitative values that you can now add to this lookup, be it quantity on hand, quantity committed, quantity on PO. Keep in mind with this configuration, when you go into this lookup, you're looking at the quantitative values for the work group that you're logged into. So if I log into main and I go into this lookup, these are main values, not my east values or my storage values. I would have to log into that work group separately to see those values. Now you can modify the filter in the lookup so that it's more refined. And when you modify the filter, you're going to add an element called quantity on hand, and then you're going to change a parameter that defaults to exactly to less than and populate this with a 0. Then once you run that filter, you'll have a refined list in your lookup of only items with negative values. So if you want to save it so that you don't have to customize and design every single time you want to see the negative values, once you run the filter and you're looking at that refined list, you're going to come here to Options, Save As, and then you're going to get Save It As Default is going to be the suggestion. So you don't want to save it as the default because then it becomes the default for everyone in the organization. So you'll want to give it a name, something sensible like negative inventory. So when it comes to those on-hand mysteries, why are my items in the negatives? Why is my cost this value? My favorite report to determine that is an inventory under reports, and it's called the Inventory History Report. It's literally an audit trail of every transaction that's affected the item that you're interested in solving the mystery for. So here's what it looks like. What I like to do is come to this order by line and use this drop down and select transaction date type. That way, in chronological order, I can see all the documents or transactions that affected the inventory item. And then I set this report type here to detail so I can see each and every one of those transactions. Next, go to the inventory history tab and select the item in question. This report can be super overwhelming if you don't filter. So if you have a problem item or problem items, I would look at them one at a time. Typically, when you figure out the problem with one item, you're going to generally know the problem with the other items. And if you don't, then filter on another item separately, when you run the report again. Now, if you're multi-site, you have more than one store, you can also filter for a particular location. Maybe this is your problem child, but it's only a problem child at one of your locations. So this report will show you, if you look to the left, the transaction. See, I have transfers, physical count, receiving, sales. And then you can see here the quantity adjustment. So here, anything without a minus is an upward adjustment. Anything with a minus is a downward adjustment. So you can see here for my sales and returns, I sold one and then I sold three. If I had a sale and return in a positive value, it would be a return. But if it's negative, it's a sale. Something else that I'd like to point out to you is this physical count transaction right here on this line. A lot of people think when they're looking at this report that that physical count is the actual count during the actual inventory. That's not true. This is the adjustment from the create. So for example, if my create saw 1, but I counted 101 at the end of the day when I post, Counterpoint's making an upward adjustment of 100. So with that being said, let's get into the software and take a look at all this cool stuff. So I'm going to start in inventory. I'm going to come here to inventory. So this is different than items. Items has all your descriptive information. This inventory is for all your quantitative information, anything to do with a number. I'm going to click on table view. So you can see, I see an item number, I see all my locations. And then if I want to go into my column designer, right click, column designer. But notice in my column designer, I don't have any descriptive values like category, subcategory, description. This is all number values. I can filter to just filter for my quantities that are less than 0. Now I've already customized this filter, but if you don't know how to customize, it's really easy because this quantity on hand is not there by default. So if you right click, customize, click here to add a condition, Counterpoint brings over a random condition, something that it sees next, but you and I don't see. So then I can click on this condition that it brings over, in this case, bin 1. I'm just going to type a Q on my keyboard. Then I can select quantity on hand or quantity available. Remember, quantity available is what your live quantity is right now at the moment in time. Quantity on hand is typically what you started the day with. When you select the value, it'll default to is exactly. So you can use this parameter and make it less than, like that. And then when you're done, you're going to right click, simplify, and then put in your criteria. I don't try and put criteria into the custom view. It's a little clunky and sometimes it doesn't stick. So it's better to come to this simplified view. Now, if you do design that filter and you want to save it so it's permanent, so you don't have to design it every single time, once you're done designing, and I would design it without criteria because you might want to filter on other quantities. But once you're done designing the filter, just right click, and save as default filter, it becomes the default for everyone in the organization. And as I mentioned earlier, if you wanted to export this view, oh, here, let me go ahead and filter though. So let me filter for things less than 0. So you can see I just have one quantity on hand of -3. But if I wanted to send this to a report, it's simply like right click. And actually it's a CSV file. I can just click on export data. And then Counterpoint will bring up a window basically saying, well, here's where I want to put this report, this CSV file. I want to put it in this directory. I don't want to drill down that much. That's a lot of clicking. So you can actually save it to your desktop. Just give it a name, negative items, and then save. And then you'll see when you go out to your desktop, there's a negative items out here somewhere that I would like to show you, but I must have saved it wrong. So we'll just move forward. So I'm going to go back to inventory and inventory. This time I'm going to go to a lookup. So I can do the same thing in a lookup. I can right click, sort ascending. All my negatives will come to the top. I can go to the filter, and the filter that I designed in table view will be here in the lookup. I can say, show me things that, are less than 0. So there's my list. If I right click and export data, again, it's automatically going to be a CSV file. Let me see if I can say that again. Well, there it is right there. I just didn't see it on my desktop. It automatically is a CSV file. If you want more export options, if after you run your filter, click on preview, and this is true of any preview anywhere in Counterpoint, this little envelope up here at the upper left, the format defaults to Acrobat, but you can choose from any one of these formats. By the way, if you do want to send this to Crystal Reports or to Word or Excel, you have to have those applications installed. You can also choose a destination, a disk, your desktop, your local C drive, or maybe the actual application itself. So if I just choose the application, click OK a couple of times, Counterpoint will actually launch the application for me with that information. So that's one way, but again, a huge limitation in the table view or the lookup is that the column designer is so limited here because it's only displaying quantitative values. So you can see here, I'm in my column designer in a lookup, no categories, subcategory, or descriptions. So if you know your item numbers, you're in really good shape, but if you're not real familiar with your item numbers, not incredibly helpful. So one that I find is incredibly helpful is view inventory detail. So that's under inventory and under views here on the left, and then view inventory detail. If you have a lot of inventory, please employ these filters up here. If you have 20,000, 30,000, 60,000 lines, and you come in here and go straight to view details, it's going to take a long time to load. So you'll want to filter maybe for a category or maybe a location. I only have 100 lines of inventory, so I'm not going to filter, but don't follow my example, please. So I'm going to click on view details. So this is pretty nice. You can see all your items. Okay. You can see the locations. Here's gridded items, and they're all broken down to the color and size level, which is really nice. You can actually come into your column designer, right click column designer, and you can select any one of these values to add to the view. You can right click and export data, just like in table view and a lookup. It'll automatically send this view to a CSV file. You can see that here. The only thing you can't do here is you can't sort. So, anywhere in table view or any lookup, you can right click and sort ascending or descending. This doesn't allow you to do that. You can also customize the filter here. So if I just want to see my values below 0. Again, it's like customizing any other filter. Right click, customize, click here to add a condition. This time I'm going to choose quantity available. Just going to press a Q here. There we are. Quantity available equals. I'm going to change equals to is less than. Now I'm going to simplify the filter before I put in criteria. So simplify. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. Okay, and then you can't press enter to see the results. You actually have to click on view details in order for the results to display. Oh, look, quantity available more than 0. Let's recustomize. So I'm going to right click customize. So we want quantity available less than. I'm going to go ahead and simplify the filter. Scroll down. Okay, less than 0. Click on view details. And there you go. Now notice I have more items being returned because I filtered on quantity available. And there's a difference. Again, that quantity available is constantly changing based on your sales, that haven't been posted yet, unposted receivings, unposted adjustments, unposted transfers. So that's why I have more. So pretty handy to have this. There's other things you can do in this view as well. Let's say you wanted to just focus on all your items that are blue for whatever reason. I'm just going to go ahead and change one of these values. So what I'm looking for is cell description because that's that column right here. So I'm looking for cell description. So cell description, and then I'm going to change the is exactly. I'm going to say it contains. Now I'm going to simplify the filter. I'm going to say, you know what? Find me everything in my inventory where you see a cell description that has blue. And then click on view details. And there you go. So you can see here, if you look to the cell description column, anything that has blue in it is showing in this view. So pretty handy, this view. I like it. But something that I like even better is that modification to the data dictionary. And that modification is going to allow me to go to inventory and items. And I've already modified my data dictionary just so you can see the results. So when I go into this lookup here on the item number line, that's important. It has to be this lookup. So for example, this is what I see happen a lot. Somebody's looking at an existing item. You can't get into this lookup, but this is the lookup you want. So if you're looking at an existing item, just use this black facing arrow. And then you can come into this lookup. And then you can see I've already got a saved lookup here. So I'm just going to go to my default. But now I can go into my column designer and I'm going to have so many other quantitative values that I can add. So if I right click column designer, I'm going to type a Q. So I'm highlighting one of these, rather than scroll all the way down to the Qs. If you just highlight one and you type a Q, and then this works everywhere in Counterpoint in any column designer, by the way. So you can see I can add quantity committed, quantity on back order, quantity on hand, quantity on POs, so many quantitative values. And again, these are quantitative values for the work group that I'm signed into. I signed into my main work group. So how to make this modification? It's pretty easy. I'm going to close out of here. I'm going to go home. You're going to go to Setup on your Launchpad, System on your Launchpad, Configuration on your Launchpad, and then Data Dictionary. Maybe. Okay, now notice the first window that launches is the Data Dictionary window. This is not the window we need. The window we need is the System Data Dictionary. And if I just scoot this out of the way, you can see it's right here. So this window just kind of hides it. So you can scoot this out of the way if you like, or you can click on System DD right here. So now I want a table called IM. So I'm going to use this dropdown. and I'm going to select IM. And then down here, it's in alphabetical order, so I could scroll to IM item, but I could also just start typing. You have to double click first. So there's my table, IM item. Now I need a column called item no. And again, I could scroll down to the I's because it's alphabetical, or save yourself some time. Just double click on one of these elements and then start typing. And there's item no right there. Then we're going to customize column, and that's going to return us back to the data dictionary. So you can see I have IM item no. I'm going to go to my other tab, this lookup table. I'm going to click on this ellipsis. And then you're going to get this huge long list. And typically it looks like this when you go in here, like this. So you could just use this drop down, choose VI, it'll drop you down into the VIs. And then you're going to look for that element VI IM item with INV. And there it is. Then the lookup field, again, you'll click on the ellipsis and you'll choose item number, which is right at the top of the list. Next, you'll save and refresh, and then you need to restart Counterpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and restart Counterpoint. By the way, this splash screen, there's 5 different splash screens you can choose from that are available for your main screen of, so if you still have that splash screen with the computer and you want something a little fancier, this one's for grocery. There's also one for sporting goods, clothing, wine, and gift. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign in. So if you want, a fancier splash screen, just log a support ticket. We'll be happy to help you out with that. Okay, I'm gonna go to inventory and I'm gonna go to items. I'm gonna go into the lookup on the item number line. And then I'm gonna filter for my negative values. So I'm gonna go to options, filter, or I could just come to filter, probably a little easier. I'm going to customize the filter by right clicking customize. Again, I'm going to find that quantity on hand or quantity available, whichever I like best. Let's do quantity on hand. Okay, and I'm going to say quantity is less than. Now I'm going to simplify the filter and say quantity is less than 0 and click OK. And now I have a lookup that's only showing me negative values. And if I don't want to do all those steps from scratch, every time I want to see negative values, once I run this filter and I have the results, I can go to Options, Save As, and Counterpoint's going to suggest I save it as the default. Please don't do that. Give it a name. So I'm going to call it negative inventory and click OK. So now this lookup will forever live in this dropdown. So anytime anyone in the organization goes into a lookup, this is typically what they're going to see. Oh, you know what? I want to see that cool negative lookup. So then we just use this dropdown, choose negative inventory, and there you go. Again, you can right click, export data, or you can preview and have additional export options. So that's the data dictionary. Pretty easy and fantastic results. Let's talk about some reports next. So there's an inventory status report, and it can be run a couple of different ways. So if you go to inventory and down here to reports, and you come here to the inventory status report, so at the very top where it says report, this drop down, if you choose item, vendor, category, any one of these, what's going to happen is at the bottom of the parameters tab, you're either going to select a location or all locations. If you select all locations, your numbers are going to be combined. So you're not going to see any location detail on the report. It's just going to say item number, here's how many you have, right? So if I click here on preview, you can see it's just telling me the item and on hand as a company, not as a single location. If I only wanted to see a single location, then I would choose it in this lookup. Another option you have is the order by. Do you want it in item number order? Do you want it alphabetically in vendor number order or category order alphabetically? Totally up to you. Now, another way to run the report and get location detail are these three down here. So item, vendor, categories. I'm just going to choose this item one. Again, you can change the order by. I'm going to leave mine at item number. Then include items if quantities on hand. So there's nothing in here that says less than zero. Either it's non-zero or it's above zero or it's zero or has to do with min-max or you look at all. I usually select all. Now notice down here, this grayed out area, this will only be enabled if you choose this cell detail dropdown and you choose one of the list options. So then you can group it, a cell within a location or, a location within a cell, how many blues at my main, or cell display order. And then another decision you can make is down here under additional information. This will show you core values that come with the report. And then you can additionally have, last sold, last received, last counted, or inventory value or stock values. And then if I go above a little bit, by default, it's showing you the report, quantity on hand, quantity on PO, min max. You can have these other ones as well. Let's do all quantities just for fun. So I'm just going to go ahead and preview. And here you go. So here you can see, as opposed to the last time I ran this, I'm actually getting location detail. Oh, this is showing lots of quantities. It's even showing you your average cost, showing your committed, your available, on POs, layaways, on orders, special orders, back orders, transfers, even your last count information. That's your last physical count. So pretty nice report. Now, remember I said show all quantities. Well, I just want to see my zeros. Things are in my negatives, right? So if I come here to inventory, that's important. It's got to be the inventory tab and customize this filter because this value is not here by default. So just like customizing any other filter, right click, customize, click here to add a condition, random condition comes over, you just click right on that. By the way, everything's a left click unless I say right click. So everything's a left click unless I say right click. So I'm just going to find my quantity on hand or quantity available, whichever I like best. Oop, that's quantity on layaway. Still quantity on layaway. Here we go. And then, of course, the parameter defaults to equal. So you just click right on equal, say it's less than, and then I'm going to simplify the filter, right click simplify, and I'm going to say only show me less than zero, and then preview, and there you go. You can see here my -3 for this item. And then, of course, if you want to save that filter so it's the default filter, once you create the filter, you go back in here again. It's just like saving any other filter. You would just right click, save it as the default, or if you want to save it under a separate name so it's a completely separate filter, that's fine as well. If you do want to save it as a separate name, it's save to database. And then you can call it like, quantity filter. So if you were to load this report and come here to the inventory tab and you didn't see this value here because it's not the default value, you could load that custom filter by right clicking, load from database, and then you would find your quantity filter right there and load it. And then it would put that value there for you. Another report that I really like is the inventory history report. This is the one that gives you an audit trail for items. And again, I would just focus on one problem child at a time. So it's pretty easy to run. Inventory, reports, inventory history report. Now when I get here, I'm going to go to the order by line, use this drop down, and I'm going to select transaction date type. I'm going to select detail. I'm going to come to the inventory history tab, select my problem child item. So in this case, it's my Atom TL2 that's in the negatives. And then again, I could filter for a single location, but the important thing here is filter. Filter for an item, single item. Now I'm going to preview. Okay, so you can see there was a physical count where there was a zero adjustment, meaning whatever my create step was also my count. So there was no adjustment down or up that needed to be done for that item. It was right on the create. Then you can see I did a receiving of 1 unit and then sold 4. So what's the problem? Okay, it could be one of two things. It could be that this item came into the store and the manager was very excited. Oh, yeah, I've been waiting for this. And instead of receiving it into Counterpoint, they just open the box and they put the merchandise out on the floor. So Counterpoint doesn't know. That's what I mean about receiving mistakes, literally not receiving. Now, when it comes to sales, it may be that an item for $29.99, oh, wrong column. An item for $29.99 came up to point of sale, but that item wouldn't scan. The barcode was broken. And instead of the cashier doing a lookup to find the proper item, they just found something else, this item for $29.99, and they sold this item, but something else walked out the door. The same is true with transfers. The source store does a transfer out, they post, their quantities get updated, but now the destination gets the product. Oh, yeah, I've been waiting for this. And again, instead of doing the corresponding transfer in, they just open the box and put the merchandise on the floor. So this is part of your detective work as to figuring out why you have the negatives. Are we receiving wrong? Are we making mistakes at point of sale? Are we making mistakes in transfers? Or did we make a mistake on our last inventory? And I'm going to show you what that mistake is. I'm going to close out of here. And I'm just going to go to physical count and post. So it's super important when you're posting your inventory that you choose this switch, which scares a lot of people because it says assume quantity counted as 0. So, it's like, you mean everything I counted is going to be 0? Here's the meaning of that switch. If there's no count in the count field, then assume it's a 0. That's what that means. So some people choose this instead. And what that means is if I didn't count it, but my create was 5 or -5, then that's going to be my new on hand. This skip, you'll always get errors if you use skip. You'll get lots of scary errors. It means only update the physical items I counted. Don't update anything else. So you can see where that would lead to some problems. So those are the reports that I like to look at and reasons why our inventories go into the negatives. So let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation. And we'll go from the current slide. So your takeaways should be, let me just get rid of my presenter's view here. And I'm going to hide that. So your takeaways here, you should know at the end of this session how to look for negatives in your inventory. You should be chasing them. And if you're a year, or let's say you're 6 or 7 months away from your next physical inventory, maybe you wait until that's done. But especially right after a physical inventory, you want to stay on top of this. So you can go look at inventory. You can go look at an inventory view, the view details. You can modify the data dictionary to see those quantitative values in a lookup. And you can look at a couple of reports. And those 2 reports that I showed you aren't the only 2 reports in the world, by the way, to look at negative values, but the 2 that I consider the most comprehensive. All right, so I always love your feedback. When you get your link to the video no later than Monday, there will be a survey attached. You can remain anonymous. You can also give me feedback and topic suggestions for next year, for 2023. Or you're so excited you'd like to fill out the survey today, just go to our website, www.cksystem.com/training bytes survey. Next, oh, hey, here's another one, good one here. You want customized training? Training on, every time you come to these webinars, it's a golf store. Not everybody has a golf store. So if you want custom training tailored to your business, your data, give me a call, main number, extension 3, or email training at cksystem, notice it's singular, training at cksystem.com. Next month on August the 3rd, anyone that has more than one store, multi-site, you know who you are if you know that word, multi-site, or if you have a store with lots and lots and lots of point of sales, chances are you have offline ticket entry. Offline ticket entry is something that kicks in when your server goes down. Well, it doesn't automatically kick in. I mean, you have to click on it, but it gives you a way to still ring sales even though your server's down. So I'm going to show you the offline functionality next month, daily processes, how to open, sync, and close, and then some basic troubleshooting. What if offline's not working? Are there things that I can do, or when do I need to log a support ticket? So make sure you sign up for that one. Okay, so with that, let's take questions. Okay, is there a limit in table view of items shown? Wilda, that is such a great question. And the answer is yes. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So there's a control in Counterpoint, and this is for performance purposes. So if you go to Setup, System, Company, there's a control for how many rows are returned in table view and how many rows are returned in a lookup. And so here in the company setup, if I come here to performance, so you can see here, maximum rows in a table view. The default is typically 400. Um, if you have a lot of inventory, 20, 30,000 lines, I wouldn't change that. But if you only have maybe a couple thousand and you want all the items to load every time you're in a table view, you can go ahead and change it. But if you notice Counterpoint acting really sluggish, that's probably why, is because you increase that. And then the same thing with your lookups down here. Now, there is a workaround in a lookup to load your entire inventory, which I like better than changing these controls. So if I close out of here and I go to inventory, I'm going to go back to items. And this is true of any lookup anywhere in Counterpoint, by the way, customer lookup, item lookup, employee lookup. So any lookup, whether it's this one here or the one on the toolbar, doesn't matter. So the control in mine says only return 400 rows or 200 rows, whatever. So if I want to see my entire 20,000 lines of inventory right now, can't do it in table view, but here in a lookup, I can click on options and show all. I only have 100 rows, so that's why mine's not lit up. But show all will load the entire inventory. And I've loaded some pretty big inventories. If you've got 20, 30,000, it doesn't take too long, a few seconds. But if you're up there in the 60, 70,000 range, it might take a couple minutes. So that was a really good question. Okay, any other questions? Just double check the chat. I don't see anything. Okay, well, as usual, I appreciate everyone's time and attention. I know we're all busy these days. And hopefully I see you on August the 3rd for offline ticket entry. Okay, everyone, have a great day.